And now we're going to talk about white blood cells. Leuko means white, cyte means cell. You probably heard of leukemia, which deals with leukocytes. The interesting thing about leukocytes versus erythrocytes is they have a nucleus. So behind here, like these are the red blood cells, the white blood cells are right here. This is called a multi-lobed nucleus. We'll get into that in about a second. They're about twice as large as red blood cells. They move by phagocytosis, like an amoeba, so that's a lot of times they call it amoeboid movement. They are mostly spherical, whereas the red blood cells are biconcave. They're like little discs. They live 4 days to decades. Some of your lymphocytes are specific lymphocytes that respond to different viruses, and those can live for decades. Your book does a good job of talking about these. There's a couple of ways to get your white blood cells. All blood cells start as stem cells, and in the lymphoid stem cells, which are also in your lymph nodes, become part of your lymphatic system, natural killer cells, T lymphocytes. They have a very specific look, a huge nucleus. Our other line here is the myeloid stem cells, and that's where we get red blood cells, platelets, and the myeloblasts, which then become these different types of white blood cells. I'm not so worried about that, where they come from. It's just good for reference. In your body, you have approximately one white blood cell for every 600 red blood cells. Now, your book may say 1 to 1,000, so anywhere between 600 and 1,000 is what I will take. When that number goes up, when you've got, when it's 1 to maybe 100 red blood cells, that's a lot of white blood cells. There's something going on. They've got some specific jobs. They destroy old red blood cells. They repair tissue, form antibodies. That's a key one. That's your lymphocytes that do that. They respond to chemical waste given off by bacteria. Then they go and surround and engulf that bacteria and destroy it. So they are the quick responders in your body. You've got types of white blood cells, granular and agranular. So our granular, polymorphonuclear, so poly meaning many, morph meaning changing, nuclear. So it's a many-changing nucleus. They have a many-bodied nucleus. They have granules in the cytoplasm, and there are 3 types. We're probably going to draw these in class, but I want to make sure that this is in the iBook as well. Our neutrophils. This is our neutrophil right here. This is the nucleus. Remember, this is only 2-dimensional. That's the problem with looking at this. This is a 3-dimensional globular thing. So this has 4 lobes in the nucleus. This one looks like it has like 3 lobes in the nucleus. This one has 4 lobes. So these are granular, meaning that there are tiny little granules in the cytoplasm. This is the most numerous white blood cell. They respond to bacterial infection. So I need you to remember this phrase: never let monkeys eat bananas. Neutrophils is never. There's more neutrophils than any of them. 3 to 5 lobes. They destroy invaders by phagocytosis. Obviously, you can copy this down. Neutrophils are our buddies. They are our friends, and keep that in mind. Here's a picture of it. Now remember, this is all the nucleus. It's just that they're polymorphonuclear, that the nucleus does change. Eosinophil. The nucleus looks like a bee, or some people say it looks like headphones, like, if you had some spendy headphones that you're putting on. But I think it looks like a capital B. I don't know why it's an eosinophil then. That doesn't make sense. Never let monkeys eat. So eosinophil is eat. This is the second to the least number of white blood cells are these. They are very granular. They attack objects coated with antibodies. So antibody would mark a cell, and then this guy is the one that would go and find it and start to engulf it. The number rises during an allergic or parasitic infection. They function to release enzymes to combat an inflammatory reaction. Your book does a good job of explaining that, so I'm going to let you read that. And here's the nucleus once again. It looks like a capital B. Next, we have our basophil. Never let monkeys eat bananas. Very uncommon. Right here in red and blue, make sure you know those 2 terms. Heparin is a blood thinner. This is what they would give you if you're having a heart attack. Isn't that what aspirin does? It kind of acts like heparin, and that is correct. Histamine, which causes the swelling of a blood vessel, so it becomes more permeable to blood vessels. Um, Histamine makes you swell. It makes you leak. You take an antihistamine to stop leaking. That's when your nose is running and that kind of thing. So you've got to know these two words. They are really important. They move blood to an area, so easily removing waste products and toxins. So the more blood you get there, the more things you can remove. Now they migrate across capillary walls due to accumulate at site of injury. That is called diapedesis. D-I-A-P-E-D-E-S-I-S. Diapedesis. That's also in your book. You've got to know that word. Here's the picture. And how are you going to recognize a basophil? You can't really see the nucleus because the granules are huge and dark. Next, moving on, we've got our agranular. They have a clear cytoplasm. Put an A in front of anything, it means not. Never let. So this is our lymphocytes. Lymphocytes are going to be found in your lymph nodes. They look like, I think, an egg, like a fried egg. So we've got this huge, huge nucleus in the center and very, very, very little cytoplasm around the edge. It looks kind of like a full moon maybe. They are abundant in your lymphoid glands. They are type B, type T lymphocytes. They're pretty small. They're about the same size as your white blood cells, but their nucleus is huge, and that's how you're going to remember this guy. And then we have our monocytes, and they look like they've got a big horseshoe in the center. Never let monkeys, so this is our middle one, never let monkeys eat bananas. They are huge. They're the largest of all your white blood cells. They take longer to reach an infection, clearly because they're larger, but because they're large, they destroy more microbes. They respond to chemicals that to attract the neutrophils, and neutrophils will surround and engulf. These guys also surround and engulf, but working with the neutrophils, they get to an infection and take care of you. Mononucleosis has a lot of these. So here we go. Here is the mobility of white blood cells. So this is diapedesis, where it actually leaves the blood vessel and goes into the tissue to try to take care of an infection, or some sort of bacteria is maybe gathered there or something like that. So diseases of the white blood cells. The term leukemia refers to a great number of these diseases. So if you look at this little picture right here, you can see that there should be one white blood cell for every 600 red blood cells. There's a lot of white blood cells going on here. There's clearly something wrong. What happens is, and I know that you can read this, that there's so many white blood cells being created in the bone marrow that it crowds out the red blood cells. Red blood cells are what carry oxygen. If you can't carry oxygen, you're going to be very tired, and it's not going to go really well for you. So I am going to move right into plasma right now, just to get through with this. But plasma is what carries things through your body. It's 90% water. It also contains lipids, hormones, protein substances. Your book has a really good breakdown of the albumins and things like that. It's a straw-colored tissue. You can donate just plasma, and we'll talk about that in class. It transports things. It irrigates your tissues. Blood plasma also contains clotting factors, which is fibrinogen. It's in red because you absolutely have to know this word, which in combination with platelets controls hemorrhaging. Hemorrhaging is when you are bleeding out and it is uncontrollable. It regulates your body's water and minerals. And albumin maintains osmotic pressure. This cannot move through your cell membranes. Thus, you would lose too much water. As a result, these proteins pull water into the bloodstream. I think it's page 338, so read that page about it. It's really interesting. They defend against infections because the antibodies are also in the plasma. Immunoglobulins, I believe, is what I'm looking for here. And lipoproteins, globulins, those kinds of things are all found in the plasma. These all work to defend your body. Now, we're not going to go through gamma, beta, and alpha globulins, but I know gamma globulin is something that they do give to AIDS patients, and there's a huge amount of research on that. So if we move down, this is a normal hematocrit. Hematocrit we're going to do in class. Plasma's on the top, white blood cells and platelets would be found, and this is called the Buffy, B-U-F-F-Y coat, Buffy coat, and this is the erythrocytes or red blood cells. This would be after you let blood sit or if you spin it in a centrifuge. And so this right here, this is not white blood cells, this is actually clay. Here's red blood cells. This should be about 1%. And lo and behold, this is huge. This is about a quarter of the entire hematocrit. There's something wrong with this person. There's way too many white blood cells. The plasma is up here. The plasma should be more than the red blood cells, but this Buffy coat right here is very, very, very thick. That person is clearly sick. This shows capillary exchange. I'm not worried about that. And that concludes our fabulous movie on plasma and white blood cells.